Welcome to Future Talks. My name is Ken Lusinger of Zero North Data, where we protect and secure your data. Let me introduce our hosts, and they'll give you an idea of what this program's about. I've got to my right, David Hamilton, and with us online from New Mexico is Cody Willard.
Hey, thanks for having us, and it's great to be here. David, nice to finally kick off this show. We've been talking about this idea for a very long time, and I'm thrilled to do something to give just sort of a brief overview. Look, even just a background quickly on me. If you Google me, you'll find that I used to be almost famous. I was on Fox Business for many years. I was Larry Kudlow's sidekick on CNBC before that for, a year or two. Jim Cramer from CNBC is the one who actually published my articles the very first time and put me on TV and got me going down that path. For a day job, though, I run a hedge fund. I invest in revolutionary technologies. Right now, my favorite sector is space. SpaceX, for example, in the private markets, I've invested in that, but in the public markets, I look for space companies too. Anything that's going to revolutionize the world, or in these days, the galaxy. And I'm very anti-partisan. I think that's part of what David and I have bonded about is I think the partisan movement in this country, both Republicans and Democrats and the cult or tribe or whatever you want to call it, that people join when they get into one of those parties is unproductive and tries to basically demonize the other side. And David and I want to empathize. We want to build this on an empathy notes, I guess it will be plural. And, rather than trying to explain how the other side's evil, we're going to try to understand both sides. Because look, it's all sort of evil. When you join a group, it's very hard to be independent and liberty-minded. Can't say liberal anymore because that's got all kinds of connotations, right? It used to mean
it changed,
like conservative, but now it means socialist. I don't know. These are the type of things that David and I want to explore. Right, David?
Absolutely. So it's an honor to be here with Ken and with you. I want to thank Ken and Zero North for being the sponsor of Future Talks. I want to thank you for being with me. We together, we share many of the same values and interests, etc. And one of those is that we love America, right? We believe America, with all its faults, is the greatest country perhaps to have ever existed. And but we recognize it has its faults, and we're very willing to address those, but from a very sort of pragmatic, common sense, non-partisan view, right? Approach. And so what we'd like to do is bring people on here in the future who are smarter than us, ask them questions and ask them for solutions. What, instead of pointing fingers, who's doing what wrong, et cetera, what do we do about this? How do we ensure America remains the strongest military, political, and economic power in the world? How do we make it stronger, more noble, and more generous? Because that's the mission of our group called the America's Future Series. We're all about helping America be a stronger, more noble, and more generous country. Right? And we'd like to bring people on who can talk about U.S. global competitiveness and national security without being partisan. We talk about policy, not politics. And that's really the purpose of this show, to give people a sense of that it's not impossible for us to have unity and to come together as a people and to make the world a better place and our lives better, et cetera. It's also a forum for us to bring brilliant people on who are changing the world. Like you said, through the space economy, technology, advanced technologies, et cetera, the open AIs of the world, et cetera. We'll be bringing those kinds of folks on so people can have hear their thoughts, but also ask them some questions. We'll be doing some live things down there. So that's really the purpose of this. Really thrilled that everyone is here with us. Our next guest is Rudyard Lynch.
Our first
inaugural guest is Rudyard Lynch, who at 13 years old started his own podcast. He's 21 years old now, doing pretty well, lives in LA, has a nice life. And he is probably the best read person I've ever met. He has an eidetic memory for everything he's ever read, and he can analyze it and regurgitate it. And he's going to come on and talk about civilizations. How do civilizations like America get started? How do they thrive and grow? How can they stumble? And they eventually tend to go by the wayside, right? And we're interested in forestalling perhaps the inevitable demise of the American experiment. So what are the things that we can do to forestall that? If we don't learn from history, we'll repeat it, right? Okay. On March 10th, he's going to join us for our Dual Use Technology Summit. We have a national security Dual Use Technology Summit that is part of South by Southwest. It's virtual. We get a lot of viewers. We'll have over 100,000 viewers. That'll be streamed. A lot of different media will stream that for us. And we have people like Deputy Secretary Kathleen Hicks being interviewed by General David Petraeus. We're getting help hosting by General Alexander. Palmer Luckey of Anduril, who invented Oculus and runs Anduril, a technologist, a futurist, who's referred to affectionately as Tony Stark, as Iron Man. We're going to honor him. So we want to use this speaker series and these podcasts to dovetail and to support each other, right? And we want to be able to bring our audience in this format, and then we'd like you to join us. If you'll go to afseries.com, www.afseries.com, you can find that event. You can come, and here's a free code, AFS free, all caps. Just type that in and it's free. Great. So I think these were the key things we wanted to cover, right, Cody? We wanted to introduce ourselves
David,
a little.
Can you, David, you didn't introduce yourself a little bit. If you would give a 30-second background on who David Hamilton is.
Gotcha. I hate doing that, but I'll do it. So I'm an older guy. Spent 30 plus years in consulting.
I'm the one who had a heart attack 2 weeks ago. This guy's trying to claim
and by the way, he looks pretty good
for
a guy that has a stent, right? He's running around. So glad you're with us, sir.
Thank you.
So spent almost 40 years actually in consulting. And have spent a lot of my time, energy, effort focused on things like operational excellence, help create Lean Six Sigma at the George Group. About 13 years ago, we founded the America's Future series, working with T. Boone Pickens, Ross Perot Sr., Randall Stevenson, Herb Kelleher. All of these folks wanted a nonpartisan forum to discuss issues impacting U.S. global competitiveness and national security. And we've had a lot of what I affectionately refer to as rubber chicken dinners. It's really good chicken, but steak and that kind of stuff. And we've raised a little over $7 million for different charities, mostly military ones. We want to support our military and their families. So we have a host of events on that. And for 13 years, we've been running America's Future series. And in about 3 years ago, because of COVID, we were able to get Sir Richard Branson to join us virtually. We pivoted, as everyone did, and we've become a virtual sort of platform. So we have a series of events. Me personally, I was very active in the civil rights movement. I consider myself a radical moderate, if there is such a thing, right? I used to be what they call a classic liberal, but I am a hardcore middle-of-the-road centrist, if there was such a thing, right? And I have friends on the very far right, far left, center, etc. I have a Rodney King view. Can't we all get along? And I think we can if we focus on policy and not politics. I can sit down with just about anybody on the planet, pick an issue, and if we don't use those terms, don't get tribal, etc., we can come to a reasonable accommodation, right? If we have mutual respect for each other.
We find more common ground than uncommon ground. Like you watch Fox News or you watch MSNBC and you'll think that the other side, whichever side you're on, is completely evil and trying to take over the country and do some nefarious things and
threats to democracy.
Right. Everything's a threat to democracy. And look, it is the partisan politics of the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal that, if anything, are the threat to democracy in this country. We need to just step back a little bit, find common ground, not freak out about too much. You know, for example, David, you mentioned earlier, part of the thrust of the America Future series starts off with you want it to be the United States to be a strong military presence. I'm not sure it's the wording that I challenge on that, or if it's actually the principle. I do not want the United States to be a large military presence. I want it to be strong, which I think is where we're going to find the common ground. I want it to defend us from invaders. I want it to make sure that, China doesn't.
We don't want to be intercessionary or whatever. We're pacifist, you and I, right? we want to stay out of every fight if we can. We only want to have to fight when we have to fight. So we're in violent agreement or non-violent agreement on that, right? All right.
I guess non-violent agreement is a better way to put that.
We're in peaceful agreement on that.
Peaceful agreement. And the other thing you hit on, and for right there, I mean, that's just exactly the kind, we'll obviously go much deeper into these issues and drill down on these things when we get guests who are brilliant and know much more than we know on some of these things. But the idea is that, look, we know that we want the United States military to protect us, and we both love military people. I mean, if you are actually putting your life on the line, I admire you. I thank you. And, you know, like, we need people to help protect our country, or China, Russia, whoever can come take over. And they might not actually have good intentions.
Best intentions.
Probably
right.
not.
This right here was a good example of what people will see. We have mutual respect. I assume that you're a good person, that your intent is good, et cetera, right? And if you make a point, and I disagree with it at all, you don't become unglued, right?
What?
And,
no! How could you possibly say that?
So if people want red meat, if they want to see people fight, if they're looking for Jerry Springer moments, we're not your show.
That's right. We want to advance the topics, not just entertain here. That's part of what I think ends up happening with, you know, your social media or cable news or whatever it is you're consuming when you are doing the political consumption. And
they need you to click.
They need you to click. They need
endorphins to go up in your head.
And let's look, we're not going to agree on everything, and we are going to be upset about certain issues, but we working from a premise that the other guy, empathizing with the other guy, the other woman, the other side, the person that you're talking to, is, I think, the place we will always want to start. David, you said something else about the United States, and maybe it's the greatest country that ever existed. And the way I say it is, it's a miracle that the guys who founded our country, and they were men, mostly, I guess women truly are contribute in ways we never record in history. But the people who founded our country, let's put it that way, it's a miracle because they had the ability to create their government. And every other time anybody's ever created a government, they made it as powerful for themselves as they possibly could. They rigged the game from the beginning, like the casino or the banks, Wall Street. These guys came together and were like, hey, let's create a country, and the entire premise is to limit our power.
Well, the government doesn't control us. And it was novel.
It's novel, and to this day it still is.
So there's a lot of people, and I'll share more perhaps in the future about my civil rights background, being very left of center, being a rabble rouser and all that kind of stuff, et cetera. And I didn't always have this view of America. Okay, I have changed over time. You do that as you get older. But there are a bunch of young people down there in particular that think that America is the standard model, that it's this old fogey notion. No, it is the experiment. It was the first time a group of people got together, threw off the shackles of an oppressive government, and said, let's create a government where we actually represent ourselves, our representatives do that, and they work for us, and we aren't subjugated by a monarch. Most of the governments that people want to be like, espouse, especially if you look at the Chinese, they're the exact same thing as a monarchy. They have a king, they have a ruling party, I mean, they have royalty, right? And then they have serfs, okay? America's the other way. It's an upside down pyramid, right? The leaders are supposed to work for us. For all of you, God bless you. If you want to go to some form of totalitarian socialist program where the state owns the means of production, I'll quote Lenin. Now, I'm John Lennon. I'm not going to be with you. Yeah, if you say you want a revolution, I don't want that revolution.
No, that's right. It's interesting you're quoting John Lennon, because a lot of people would picture him as a liberal, and you're quoting him as basically saying,
his song is against that, right? And everyone else thinks that it's about joining this Chinese Communist Party, and it's not. It's the exact. If you go quoting Chairman Mao, you're not going to get along with any people anyhow. I can't remember the exact quote. So people don't listen to the words, right? It is what it is.
And that's almost always the case, right? Everybody just, hey, I've been told that John Lennon was a socialist liberal. And of course, even like there's a great example when John Lennon said, we're bigger than the Beatles. I mean, we're bigger than Jesus.
Bigger than Jesus, yeah.
The Beatles are bigger than Jesus. And the press took that and was like, he says they're bigger. What he was saying, if you go read it in context, is
in terms of influence at the time.
It is a shame. It is awful that he
wasn't applauding that, right? But that's a nuanced conversation.
Yeah,
you just
he was
brought
like,
up a nuanced conversation, and nobody wants to have this. Black and white is a lot simpler, right?
Yeah. So him bad, me good.
Yeah. 2 legs bad, 4 legs good from Orwell. But anyway. Let us do this. This has been a great start. I can't thank Ken enough for sponsoring this with Zero North. People are going to see a lot of more content from us. So I would recommend people go out to the America's Future Series website and look at the past speakers, right? These are the kinds of folks that participate in our programs. We'll do our dead level best to get them to join us here in this format. But as I mentioned, we started with Ross Perot. His son has been supportive, Ross Perot Jr., General Petraeus, General Alexander. We honored Jeff Bezos last fall. Sir Richard Branson has been with us twice. Multiple chairmen of the Joint Chiefs. We have the Deputy Secretary of Defense coming up with us and a whole host of others. So I would encourage people to go out to America's Future Series website, afseries.com. Look at our mission, look at what we're talking about, and look at the people involved, okay? And then we encourage them to join us. We're looking for people to speak. We're looking for people to participate in our programs, to help host. One of the things that we do that's unusual is we let our friends and others actually moderate those discussions. They bring people to us. It's truly inclusive. So please go out to the website. Please look at the luminaries that have been involved. We've been blessed and honored to have some of the top minds in the world on AI, space. General Raymond, right? The head of Blue Origin, Bob Smith. I can't name them all, but please go out and check it out.
Yeah, that's great. And I write and mention also, I have a website called tradingwithcody.com, and I actually I charge $1,200, $1,300 a year to subscribe to it. But if you are an active military member serving our country, I give it to you for free. So go to tradingwithcody.com, write an email to support@tradingwithcody.com, say, hey, I'd like to get a free subscription if you're active in the military. And, we mentioned earlier that we support the people who serve in the military.
And we'd like them to have some money. We'd like them, they've served.
The reason I do that, the reason I give it for free is I've spent a lot of time on Wall Street over the years, and I tell people that probably 80% of Wall Street is just sort of a machine that's churning money out of your pocket into theirs. 15%, 10% of Wall Street is fraud and theft, and 5 or 10% is actually people trying to provide value and thinking free thoughts and trying to actually help you. And I know I'm not that first 85%. I'm trying to help you people. And I'm not going to sit there and come up with some penny stock scam strategies for these military members, which is what they can end up going down the rabbit hole if they don't have someone that's saying, hey, let's at least just make some sense and not waste our money in the Wall Street machine. So be careful out there regardless. If you are not a military member, go to tradingwithcody.com and you have to subscribe. But if you are actively, actually police officers too, if you're serving our country or a community, putting your life on the line, I give you a free subscription.
Well, that's wonderful. And I've been an investment advisor. I've written on the subject. I know enough to say that Cody is the real deal. It's practical, actionable, common sense, but also cutting edge advice. So if you want to be in the know, you ought to check out someone who does the research, does the work.
That's right. I do a lot of research and I do a lot of work, and I publish everything that I'm thinking. And go to tradingwithcody.com, check it out. Appreciate you guys serving in the military and the police, frankly.
Wonderful. So Ken, we're going to turn it back over to you.
Okay. This was great. I'm really excited, and I can't wait for there to be more. As a sponsor, though, I'm going to say that a knockdown drag out would have been awesome. It would have been great television. But I understand. As
well, I see the everlasting love back
yeah,
there. So.
I guess we could. It's signed by Smokin' Joe Frazier. He was on my show when I was back on Fox. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Wow.
So let's once again, I'm Ken Lusinger with Zero North Data. We have a data container that protects and secures and makes you able to distribute your sensitive data throughout the internet and keep it safe. So, but let me walk us out. Thank you guys so much. This was an honor, and I can't wait to have more of these.
Ken, thank you so much. Thanks for being here. David, thanks for having us and building this and creating this podcast with me. I'm excited and thrilled to be a part of it. Ken, thank you for sponsoring to yourself and Zero North. And guys, tune in next week. We got Rudyard Lynch that'll be here, and we've got a slate of guests that I think you'll find fascinating coming up in weeks and months ahead.
Well said. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.